Okay, so we're now going to make the same solitaire. Instead of using extrude, we're going to use surface modeling to do this. So we're going to leave the stone, the claws, and the head the same as before, but we'll concentrate on the shank. So we don't need this guy anymore. Get rid of him, and we don't need this either. I'm just going to turn this off. Oops, there we go. Okay. We're going to use curve network and sweep 2. So we're going to need to make a couple of profiles and a couple of rails as well. So let's start with the profiles. I'm going to go to this view with a curve, straight line. Let's go to create. Actually, I want to go to a different color just to start with. Say 3 millimeters at the bottom. And we can take this and we can move it. Let's get a few things on here. And then we can duplicate that from there to there. And another line here. And we'll do a curve shank, and we'll soften the edges here. So for that, I go to curve, circle, select the tangent, and choose the curves that you want the circle to be tangent to. I've already got it set for 0.25, but you can just put in 0.25, enter, and then just left click. Mirror that to the other side. And arc direction, we need near and intersect on. Just going to choose holding down shift will give me an intersect, and I just pull it a little bit past the top of where I want to go. Just add a curve here. This is just to find the midpoint, and then I can take this curve, go to transform, 1D scale, and just pull that to the correct height. Don't need that anymore. Go back to the circle menu, tangent again, these guys, and it's already 0.25, so I'll just put enter and left click and mirror that as well to the other side. Don't need that. Let's take this whole thing and then trim. Just trim out all the stuff we don't need. And enter. I do want these 3 bottom curves and the 3 top curves. They can be joined. And there's our profile for the bottom. We're going to take this and we're going to rotate it with copy turned on from here to the end of our curve, right there. We can turn off the stone, turn off the purple and the claws for just a second. So I want to take this top bit, just the top bit, and I want to move it right up to there. And then this profile is going to be a bit wider because we do have the shank tapering down from the top. So I'll bring back the claws and the gallery here, and we're going to take this guy and this guy. And we're just going to 1D scale this out a little bit. And I'm kind of just looking for right here. I don't want it to come past the claws too much. That's probably fine. Now, when you 1D scale this out, it's not, I'll turn this off again. The curve here is going to get a lot flatter in appearance than the curve down here. Same amount of curve, just over a longer distance. Maybe that's fine. You can always take this curve and make it just a little bit more, just so it looks a bit more proportional to this one here. I'm looking in this view, but I'm doing the work in this view. With project on, I'm going back to my 1D scale, and I'm just going to scale this down just a little bit, and I'm looking here. I'm not going to scale it that much, just a bit. I'm holding down Alt just so it doesn't snap to anything. That looks nice. Project off for the moment, and a straight line. We'll just connect these guys up. Okay, now before I go any farther, the question is why there's a second way we can do this. Instead of going and building this from scratch all the time, we can use under the tool menu, we can use profile placer. And I just want to show you what happens when you use this and show you why I don't use it. So we're going to get rid of, we'll just hide these for the moment. And we'll use profile placer to do this. So in order to use this tool, you punch in a curve, my ring rail, and then we have a second rail that we're using, which is this one, and that locks in the height of the profile. And the edge profile I want is not this one, so you can click in here and it will bring up a box with all kinds of curves, and I don't think there's one that's exactly the same that I made. You can edit it and make one that you want, but we can go with, I think this guy will work, just to see sort of the difference. So the height you're not going to be able to change, but the width we can change. So at the bottom here, I think we said 3 millimeters, and enter. And then we want to add a second rail, a second profile, and you just hit the add, and you just spin this along right up to the top, and click enter. Okay. And this is why I don't use the builders. This is the difference between sort of the two ways of doing it, and that's only because, here, let me bring back these guys. Oh, and I need to, sorry, F6. MSR, and I forgot to change the width here. I can just pull this, I forget what this one is. Let's just pull it out just to be, there we go. Okay, and enter again. So the difference between them is obvious, and this always happens with the profile placer when you're going from something that is fairly, is only a few millimeters wide this way up to something much wider. And what it's doing is it's 1D scaling the entire curve. And so it's changing definitely, obviously, it's changing the way this curve looks. So here, it's not exactly what I was doing in the first place, but that's okay. Here it's okay, it's curvy and everything, it's all nice. Here at the top, because the whole thing is being 1D scaled, it's becoming all bullet shaped, and it's getting close to a knife edge almost. And that, if you want that, that's fine. But if you want to control this curve and keep it essentially the same top and bottom, then you need to divide up the curves so that you can scale these things separately. And so you're not 1D scaling the entire curve. So that is why I I've just gotten into the habit now, is I basically always build my profiles. Even if it's a square one, it's so easy to do. And if you find that tedious or whatever, you can always build a bunch of profiles and then just create a job bag for profiles and bring them out and modify them as you need. Anyways, that's enough of that one. Let's just get rid of these guys. Okay. I need a couple of points under curve, point. We'll put it on blue. I just need, I'm going to turn off a bunch of this stuff. I just need to figure out what I'm aiming at here. So there's one, and the end right here. And we'll change this color, change it to white. I'm going to do the same at the bottom. So the ring rail side is white, point at the end, and the other one is blue, point right at the end. This is just to give me something to shoot at. So with project on and the point O snap on, go to your straight line, and we'll go from there to here, boo, and then on white, again, this time, point to point. And we're also going to need a couple of curves over on this side as well. Now, we don't need the fingers, fine. So on the curve menu, arc direction, and this is going to be on white from F4, from point to point, and then on blue, this one we're going to do a little bit differently. We're going to use this curve, and we're just going to scale it. So if you go to transform, and you go to orient 2 points, select the curve, enter, copy is yes, because we do want this here, scale 3D is fine, end to end, and point to point, and escape. And that looks like nice and even. This is followed that curve quite nicely. Sometimes, depending on the tightness of the curve and how much distance you're actually scaling these two curves, this can get a little bit wonky in places, but you can easily fix it. You just click on it and go to your control points, and then you can manipulate it any way you want. Escape. And this curve is going to be blue. Okay, so there's the setup for curve from two views, and let's run that. Curve from two views, and we'll put it on a color that we don't have up there. What have we got? Throw it on red. So white to white, and run again, blue to blue. Don't need these curves anymore. Now there's an easy way to check, and I always do, to make sure that these intersect each other. And that's why I do that, because I just made I forgot to get rid of this curve. So let's just take care of that right now. Straight line, project off, end to end, end to end. There we go. Okay, we'll make sure that these curves all intersect. Click on them, and under your curves, go to intersect, click on it, and we've got 4 intersections, and they show up. That's fine. We don't need this anymore. I just go backwards. And then these curves can be mirrored to the other side. Now, usually what I do when I use curve from two views is that you'll see that if we just select these and go to control points, there are a lot more control points on this curve now than there are in the original curves. And sometimes, again, depending on the complexity of the shape that you're doing, you can end up with a lot of these control points. I usually rebuild these automatically. So I'll just escape from there, and I will select these 4 curves and go to the curve menu, rebuild. And for essentially half a ring, usually I find 11 is good. That's okay. And now it gives you a nice even spacing. And it also makes it easier if you need to modify these curves, if you need to push and pull them or anything like that. When you have a lot of control points, and it doesn't move smoothly. So let's escape from there. We can build some surfaces now. So surface, curve network. Oh, I have to escape. One more thing. Don't need that guy. Under curve, arc direction from F4. We'll put this on red with project on from there to here. And that went the wrong way. Let's do that again. From F4. There we go. Okay. This is the setup now for curve network and sweep 2. So curve network on green. Enter and enter. And one more time. Select these curves and enter, enter. That looks nice. And this surface we can create with sweep 2. Select your rails and your profile curve, enter. Maintain height I usually use, and I usually or often put in a slash, so add slash, and that is just to make it so that the iso curves are going more or less perpendicular. On this model it doesn't matter that much really, but makes it look better. When you finish, you can put in as many slashes as you want. When you finish, hit enter and then enter again to accept. And we can take this and mirror to the other side. Now we can quickly check to see if we've got any naked edges. We can take the green, join. We've got one open poly surface, and then under solids, cap planar, and we've got 2 caps resulting in a closed poly surface. I'm going to undo that last one and possibly undo that one so that we're just back to surfaces, just to maybe talk about one more thing here. So I'm going to bring everything back and save it. Okay. Let's just see how this goes. So he's nice and snug there. That looks good. Don't really need this anymore. Turn off the green. Turn off the stone and turn off the claws for a second. Now, if you don't like this, if you want the shank to come up a little bit higher or whatever, the beauty of history, which we have on, it's right here, is that we can take all of these curves and we can turn on control points. I'm just going to turn this off for 1 second here. Turn this off. But not the blue and not the white. Okay. And we can take these guys and then we can turn on control points. Now you can turn this back on. And then we can manipulate this as much as we want, really. So if we want it to be just a little bit higher, maybe we can come in and pull these curves, maybe these ones here. You can move them up a bit. And the surface will follow along with you. So whatever you want to do here, maybe choose all of these, pull them up a little bit, so it's a little bit closer to the top here. That looks nice. Escape. Okay, if you're happy with it, then you can take the green, join it, mirror to the other side, join it, and you may not be able to, we'll see if this works, you may not be able to cap this now. Yeah, okay, so, and that's fine. Turn off the purple, because when we moved these curves up, and we eyeballed it, so I think you can tell it's no longer, I'll put a, let's just see here, from here to here, straight, and then if you hit tab, it will follow up, and you can see that it's not straight. There's a little bit of a curve to it. No big deal. Couple of easy ways to deal with this. Let's just bring this back just so I don't go too far. I'm just going to put a surface up here. So go to surface, and down here to plane from corners. Put up a little surface. Move them. And I'm just going to chop off a chunk here. Just in far enough that it gets everything. And because the plane itself is flat, you will have planar curves, and you'll be able to cap it. It just makes things really easy if you can keep things like this. So we can just split now. Split the green, enter, with these two surfaces, enter. Get rid of this. And now you can just cap it, or you can split these surfaces, but let's just cap it. Cap. Created two caps resulting in one closed poly surface. Don't need these anymore. Okay, let's bring this back. I'm going to save this again. Okay. Now we want to do a cutout here, and I'm using the same cutout as I used on the previous ring. So we can select that and go again to under surface. We'll do it with solids and extrude curve straight, both sides. Just as long as it goes past, that's fine. This is going to be a cutter. And again, with history, you can select the curve and then go to control points. And if you don't like, because we now have a curve on the top of the shank, maybe you can see where the cutout's going to occur. Maybe this is a little bit too thin. Maybe you like it, maybe it's too thin. You can select your points and you can play around with them, and your cutter will move as well. So maybe you want to just drop this down just a little bit, just so it's a little bit thicker here. This guy and this guy maybe. Just a bit. That looks okay. It's fine. And we'll go to cutters, Boolean. And I always save, even though I just saved, I always save my models before I do any kind of, well, usually before I do any splitting or any Boolean operations. That way it makes it easy. If something goes wrong, you can always go backwards and to the point where you haven't cut this. If you want to do more manipulation or something like that, once you've cut it, it makes it much more difficult to do. You're also losing your history as well. So once you've joined the shank together, if you turn on your control points for your original curves, it won't do anything. You have to go back to the unsplit version. Anyways, so let's cut this guy, cutter, and the shank is the object being cut. Do Boolean. And it kept my cutter. I have no idea why. Get rid of it, don't need it. And there's the cut through there. I'll save it again. Okay, so that's it for a simple surface modeling on a solitaire. The next steps now would be exactly the same as I did in that previous movie. You can see that we've got the shank is cutting through here, so we would need to, getting this ready for casting, we need to cut that out. I won't go through all that again, but we would, I'll just turn the stone off for a second. We'd cut out all this excess here, and then use the claws to cut channels and also put the lock in, and then it can get sent out for casting. Hope this was helpful. Thanks.